question I want to get into today, and it's been a bit of a bugbear for me in trying to come to terms with my understanding of everything, and the kind of weird, a phrase we hear a lot when we talk about narcissistic abuse is reframing, and the narcissist tries to reframe everything and distort the facts and distort, at least challenge what we understood as the chronological order of things or way of looking at things, and it's a gaslighting thing to do, and all of that. Interestingly though, of course, we have to do a bit of reframing when we start our recovery process, and as to one being legitimate and one being illegitimate is a very interesting question. The sort of question a narcissist would make a lot of hay out of, have a lot of fun with, because of course they're always kind of plumbing for this kind of like, well, that's just from your point of view kind of stuff. The thing is the fundamental difference between the person escaping narcissist control and the narcissist is that they seem to agitate and create a situation where things that we had taken for granted as being fact or true they're now mobile, they're now moving around, they're fluid, you know. So for example, we'll remember that it was on Tuesday that we picked up the kid. You picked up the kids from school, and the narcissist came back really late from work, and you remember it because normally on a Tuesday you do that together. But if the narcissist wants to mess with the chronology, they'll tell you it was Wednesday, and they'll completely skip the fact that there's a really good reason why you remember. You know, and when they lie to you about this, they'll have a reason of their own, and you know, they'll sort of be quite lazy initially with their lie, which will be for their own reasons. I've just thrown that together. It's apropos of nothing. I'm just trying to use an example of how we remember it because it's real, and then when it's questioned, we recall various details that help us remember that things happened that way. The narcissist is desperate to reframe, and we also, when we come out of the narcissist's control, are in a reframing position, albeit we are adjusting our focus to compensate for the fact that we are now awake and alert to the motives of the narcissist. And the narcissist has been depending upon a kind of forgive and forget policy by us of everything they've ever done, their infractions, and to the point where, and this is the most shocking thing about dealing with a narcissist, they seem to think that reality itself, like by reality I mean a version of history, I mean a record of events. They believe this can be what we would think of as facts, like the actual thing that happened. They seem to think it's not a question of what really happened in what order and who witnessed it. They seem to think it can be controlled through their will alone, and most importantly, and I think this is key, through words. Now words, the power of words is a very interesting concept, and one that has been written about since the written word existed, I would suspect. At least, probably spoken about before then, I don't know. But certainly in religious situations, the idea of prayer is important. In mysticism and the occult, a spell, incantation. In the Bible, it is much worse to speak in a sinful way out loud. To say it is more sinful to say to take the Lord's name in vain out loud than it is to think it. I seem to remember. This is fascinating to me because it seems that when we manifest our will and commit it to words, there is a school of thought, or it's certainly a school of speculation or philosophy, that we somehow make it more real. And I think this is an innate human knowledge. This is innate human knowledge. I think humans sort of are very conscious that there's a big difference between that which we feel, that which we think, and then that which we express out loud. How many of us, I mean, you know, and of course there's the phrase, bite your tongue. I was very angry, but I bit my tongue. I was outraged, but I bit my tongue. Meaning that I withheld. Now, in the secular world, we just put that down to, and quite understandably, and probably quite rightly, we just put that down to the fact that speaking one's thoughts and feelings is not always wise. It sometimes causes upset. It can cause argument and discord. So we think twice before we do it, for the want of a quiet life, out of consideration for the other people who are present, sometimes children, sometimes guests, etc., etc. But nevertheless, it is there, this reverence for speaking things out loud. What's fascinating about the narcissist is they're not content to be superior in their own mind. They have to express it. They have to manifest their superiority in the external world through words and deeds also. But I think you'd agree with me that there's a lot of words in narcissistic abuse. There's a lot of it that's to do with saying stuff. I'm struggling to keep to the point as ever. How many of us haven't noticed that do you not think the narcissist withers and dies without his audience, without his victim, and without his coterie of politically sympathetic followers, his disciples, his or her disciples, forgive me. And if they were just content with being superior and feeling superior, and of course this is we all know this, it's supply, but it's just, I'm interested because I'm trying to nail something down. So look, I'm not going to make this too long today because I'm not in great shape, but I'm going to move on to my main point, which is this, because that's a preamble. My main point is this. To free myself and get really truly clear, I need to know that my narcissist is in the wrong, that he is abusive, and that I am in the right. I need that. It's a shame I need that. That's not always a healthy thing, but I personally need that, and I think a lot of you do. I can't imagine anybody not needing that, but that's because I'm me, and I'm a little egocentric, and I am projecting what I would need onto everybody. But that's what's going to happen. That's what the Mr. WTF channel is going to be doing. That's what I bring to the party. What I need from my recovery for the people who need the same elements in their recovery, and that's the way it should be, I think. So hopefully I'm more right than more often than not. So the narcissist and I, whether it's my father or my partner's ex or one of my exes, cross swords in a narcissistic battle, right? Or we, to use the example from my last video, we fight with our mental powers over the orb that hovers over the table and try and get possession of it. The narcissist doesn't play fair. He moves goalposts. He changes the lighting, if you like. He changes so you can't see as well, and it's in his favour. He makes sure that the football pitch is on a tilt, etc., etc. Right? But it doesn't matter. because we have something on our side, and that is the truth. It might mean we have to keep our faculties very sharp, which is very difficult after the abuse we've had, but usually, as long as we can hang on to the order of events or the facts that are certainly difficult to dispute and not get drawn into miniature conflicts, which they will always try and do. They will always try and fire you into getting into miniature conflicts and away from the main subject. Just keep bringing it back to the main subject. And this is if you're stuck arguing with them at all, and of course we should be practicing no contact. But I'm not really talking about the one-on-one battle with the narcissist in the present. I'm talking about the battle in our minds, because by the time we've got to this point, seeking recovery, we've understood there's no point getting into it with them anymore. We're trying to get free ourselves, and I've come up with one thing that is helping me clear my mind about the narcissist, my father, and I want to share it with you. It's not much, but I've been over it a lot, and it's the one thing that I think proves that the person who's the narcissist in your life is a narcissist, to help you stop the constant chatter in your mind, in my mind, of doubt, of self-doubt and self-reproach. Because I doubt every day, even after how I've been treated and after all I've done for my family, I doubt every day if my father is a pathological, covert narcissist. And it's not all just me being a prick, being a fool, being silly, because that's what I've been programmed to think so profoundly, deeply, that it takes everything I've got to stop myself just giving up and believing it's me. It's hard. But I found a chink in the armour, and when I say it to you, you'll just say to me, but that's, some of you will think, well, that's obvious, that's been covered. No, look, please, I'm hitting the reset button and going back to ground zero, and basically, because I think we do that every day. This is one tiny bit of revelation that I think can get most of us through on the days when we doubt ourselves. And I've had this recently because I've had me and my partner have had another round with our ex, and it was quite upsetting. And it just reminded me of everything. And he deployed the same tactics. And what I do, and this might be useful for you, when this happens, rather than going to being upset and feeling frustrated, I try and switch it and think, no, this is a gift. This is a gift. Because every time this ex of my partner's becomes narcissistic or behaves in a transparently narcissistic way, it's more information for me. It's more knowledge for me. It's another insight into what I'm dealing with my father, right? That's how I treat it. That might be good for you too. It might be true for your boss. It might be true for your ex. You might be angry it happened. You might be cross it happened. You might be shocked, appalled, hurt it happened. Switch it as soon as you can. No, this is a gift. This teaches me something. Let's learn something. Let's learn the next bit. And put it where it belongs in its little box. File it, right? Because they can't hope if you put your boundaries in place, and there should be boundaries in place, they shouldn't be able to get to you really. So that means every time they're cruel to you, every time they're rude to you, two things. One is, every time they hurt you or are cruel to you, they are setting you a little bit more free. That's just another excuse for you to treat them, no contact, high boundaries, for when they try to cross over into contact, everything, okay? Secondly, it's more information, it's data. It's another example, because I think if I compare I think they're the same. There is a pattern. They always behave in this syndrome way. They all repeat each other's behaviour. Without contacting each other, their behaviour is the word systematic. There's a word for this. I want to say like syndromatic, but I don't think that's a word. But it's there's a better word. I can't place it. Anyway, look. My father has invested enormously in his version of events, and so has my partner's ex. And my partner's ex has upset the household many times at my partner's house, and I got sick of it, and I gave him a piece of my mind, which of course in the end was just more fuel. Something had to be done, but of course something was done and it was more fuel. They always want drama, they always want more. And he's tried, but I've taught my partner the rules of dealing with narcissistic and the base no contact rule, which is sometimes impossible if they're the father of the children and so forth. If you fail at no contact, you go to high boundaries, reduce contact as much as possible. There's no need in this modern day to talk to people on the phone. It can all be done by text. The rules of texting and writing letters and emails are you never start the conversation unless it's absolutely essential. You go, they write, you reply. They write, you reply. You never reply twice. You never get emotional. You never get angry. See my other video about writing letters to narcissists, right? Sorry, it's called the last video I made, which was called something like when the victims are like their abusers, and there's a whole bit in there about how to write to narcissists, right? But it's really simple. You just do everything with absolute sobriety and as cold and as short as you can, because they will try and wheedle a response out of you. Never respond to that, and by doing that, you will starve them of their oxygen. I know you'll want to get in there and you want to say, "How dare you?" and you want to tell them, "Don't do it. Don't ever do it." Every time you do that, you're just feeding parts of yourself to them. Don't do it. Go and talk about it with your friends. Talk about it with your partner. Take the dog for a walk. Go for a run. Put some really loud music on and clean the house. But don't get into it with them. Don't. It doesn't serve you. You will fall every time. You will fall into their trap. And besides, you will never hurt them as much as not getting into it hurts them. They are so superior. They don't hear you. They just see your weakness. Just see weakness when you get into it with them. They don't believe anything you say. You could have my partner's ex called out the police on her partner 5 times in their relationship with domestic abuse. This is a fact. It's a matter of record. And this man has texted my partner telling her that I am mentally unstable because I shouted at him on the phone at the end of 3 minutes of trying to get him to understand that he can't be ringing at the house and upsetting my partner the way he does. After 3 minutes of trying to get through to him, I lost my temper and shouted at him, and it took less than 2 seconds. I said 2 things to him, with great. I said to him, when I shouted at him, I said 2 things. Every time you ring this house, you make somebody cry. Will you stop it? That was shouted at him. Not abuse, not swearing, not threats, nothing. Right? Now, so we've got what I did over here, and we've got, quite apart from everything else, we've got his having the police called out for domestic violence on 5 occasions. Not, he didn't try and kill her or anything, but my partner has never called out the police on me and has never needed to. And we've had some arguments, we've had some murderous arguments, but I've never raised a hand to strike her, never, right? I've kicked stuff around the room, but I've never done anything like that. This is real life, right? Let's not dick about. We're grown-ups here. These things happen. We're a lot better now. But we had to work through a lot of issues because of her past stuff. You know, we've had to work through a lot of issues. We've had to learn not to ever argue in front of the children. I was caught out a couple of times, but I really did my best to make sure that never happens now. And you know, and it makes you feel so ashamed anyway. You know, so that helps not do that. I think it's happened 2.5 times, if that. But so with these facts in play, right? He is coming after me, reframing, rewriting, chronologizing the universe where he's this reasonable guy and I'm a lunatic because I rang him up and gave him a piece of my mind. I'm sorry, I hope you agree with me, quite rightly, I think, after a long time. And this guy shamelessly is carrying this police report history of being called out for domestic abuse on my partner. So that's just an example of how seriously unhinged the narcissist can be, and yet they're absolutely sure they're right. They maintain a kind of an austere sobriety and try to get us to lose our temper, and sometimes they're successful. So in a way, my story about me losing my temper with my partner's ex is a really good example of why you shouldn't be giving them so much of yourself. It was an extreme circumstance, but there's no excuse. I broke the rules. And now I'm paying for it. See? But it is what it is. So let's get to my great revelation, which is really not all that at all, but it's useful and it's simple and it's easy to remember. I've looked at everything that's gone down with me and what I've done for this family and looking after my mum with no assistance from my family, and then the appalling way I was treated after she died, where money started being filched away from the situation. I didn't know how I was going to live. I wasn't fit to work, and there were reasons why I couldn't get state support. A situation that's been resolved to an extent now. And even while what I'm going to tell you is something that happened while I looked after my mother, which was very, very hard, and sometimes I had very little sleep for extended periods. I mean, by which I mean months and months and months, and that's quite apart from the pressure, quite apart from the lack of freedom I had, from the fact I couldn't have relationships in the end because it just wasn't compatible with being a full-time carer as my mother got more ill. I couldn't do music anymore, I couldn't play gigs anymore. Everything was just squeezed out of it, and my health was squeezed out of it, my mental and physical well-being was squeezed out of it, I was squeezed out of it. In the end, I was just a shadow of a person, just clocking in and clocking out every day, and that was no guarantee I wasn't going to be called back onto duty once I shut my eyes. Even during that experience and afterwards, you know, you're managing this difficult situation. You're keeping the chaos away from everybody else because that's what they want, right? They're getting on with their lives, right? You are completely and utterly overwhelmed, taking care of the catastrophe, the catastrophic situation, the sinking ship they've all run from. You're keeping afloat, running around, plugging in holes with bits of toilet paper or whatever you can put your hands on to fix the situation, and there's no need to interfere with it, right? And you might have a situation that's similar to that, or not similar at all. It doesn't matter. But the point I'm going to make will stand. Spinning plates, right? The narcissist tries to make out that you're the problem. The narcissist tries to make out you're the one that creates trouble. The narcissist tries to make out you've upset other people when you're just trying to manage the stuff that I've left you with. Even if you're not looking after your mother, just dealing with your own mental health issues, with the fallout from your childhood, your narcissistic family unit, or as I'm starting to call them, I've got a new name for them, the array, the narcissistic array, because it doesn't have to be a family. It could be a situation at work. It could be a hobby group you're part of. It could be an amateur dramatics company. Who knows? The array, the narcissistic array, the hierarchy, the group, the community, the gang, the narcissistic array. And you're trying to get over all of that. And you know what the difference is? You don't trouble them. This is it. This is my bit of advice. After all that, it's really hardly anything at all. You don't go to them. You don't go to them and upset their apple cart. You don't go to them when they're putting the last piece of their jigsaw puzzle into place and knock it out of their hands. And you don't go up to their spinning plate and knock the plate off their pole. You don't. But they come to you. That's the one difference I've found. They come to you. They come and disrupt your life. And there's no need to. And there's no need to. You're managing. I noticed it with my partner and the ex over a year and a half. We were managing the most difficult situation you can. You could imagine for somebody who'd just come out of looking after his mother for so long. My partner got very, very ill at the Christmas after we got together, had pneumonia, went into critical condition in hospital, was in hospital for 5 days in the critical unit. I am thrown back into a world of hospitals and responsibility, visiting my partner in hospital and looking after, and that, well, to be fair, while I was in critical care, some of the child responsibilities were taken over by her parents, and I took over making sure I was with her in critical care for as many hours a day as I was allowed. But I was thrown into having a lot of responsibility, looking after the youngest child, and maintaining the house and stuff like that. I was basically thrown back into the deep end after 7 years of being a prisoner and enslaved by my family and looking after my mother. We got past it, we got over it, but it took a long time for my partner to get her health back. And I did a lot of school runs and stuff like that. And this is all in a time frame when I should have had no responsibilities at all for as long as possible because of what I'd been through. And somewhere during this recovery process, when my partner was getting her strength back, my partner's ex's behaviour started to change. And we started getting these upsetting phone calls. And there were phone calls about how the middle daughter wasn't eating properly, or wasn't doing her homework, or wasn't doing this, or wasn't doing that. Interference, just knocking on the door of our peace and quiet. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have a right to have an interest, absolutely. But everything was fine. She was just an 11-year-old girl with 11-year-old girl issues. We were managing it the best we could. And besides, we were still getting our strength back. I'd hardly had the chance to recover from what I'd been through looking after my mum. And my poor partner, who had been very, very close to death for 5 days, nearly didn't make it. And don't forget all of the issues around that with her children being shocked by seeing their mother so ill and everything like that. I mean, the youngest child was an infant during this. I had 2 or 3 nights with that child crying for his mother in the middle of the night. In the end, I'm glad to say his father stepped in and took him at night for the rest of the time that was required, and I think being with his real biological father somehow calmed him in a way I couldn't, even though I'm extremely close to that child. Who knows, pheromones of your own biological parent must have soothed him in a way I couldn't, etc., etc. They come and they poke you in the eye. when I argue with a narcissist, the argument seems to be, that's just your point of view. That's just your point of view. That's how you see things. You would think that, wouldn't you? That suits your narrative. That's their argument. And the reason they think like that and say things like that is because they are doing it themselves all the time. You know, they accuse you of distorting facts because God knows they will if they can. When we're not starting from that position. But let's just give them some line, just for the sake of argument, and say they could be right. Let's just say for a moment that I am a pain in the arse. I am a pain in the arse. A lot of people think I'm a pain in the arse. Some of the people in this community think I'm a pain in the arse. That's fine. I'm a human being. I'm a pain in the arse sometimes. I'm a pain in the arse most of the time. Right? That doesn't mean I lie. It doesn't mean I talk shit. It doesn't mean I rearrange the chronology of events. It doesn't mean I change the way things happen or the order things happened for the sake of the record to suit my narrative. I'm not. Because that way delusion lies. That way hypocrisy lies. That way dictatorial tyranny lies. It's 1984. And it wouldn't occur to me anyway. Bloody well occurs to the narcissist, you know. But let's give them some line. Let's say sometimes I don't remember the facts so good and I'm a pain in the arse. Let's say my father has got every right to have a problem with me. Let's say that I looked after my mum completely by choice and didn't do it as much for him and as much for my mum. Let's say that I am demanding too much from him to compensate me for the 10 years of my life that have been affected by doing this extraordinary task, which was dumped on me, which I didn't really get to choose to do. The choice was that I couldn't live in a world where she wasn't looked after properly. That was the choice. Let's say that I have been a difficult son and have tested my father's nature and character to breaking point with my creative temperament and with my temper and with my how loud I am, with my disruption of his sleep by coming back late at night when I've been out seeing friends and stuff like that because he was a very light sleeper when I was a teenager and all this. Let's say all of that. Let's say he's got a point. Because I bet you've all had to do this bit of maths in your own way about some of it sometimes. Let's say he's got a point. If all that's true, you've still got the thing about I leave him in peace. I left him in peace when I looked after my mother. And he kept coming back, knocking on my door. The door of my mind, the door of my email inbox, the door of the telephone, the door of my text messages on my phone, and upsetting things. Unnecessary questions about letters from banks, about the cost of utility bills, always digging for a reaction, always trying to start some defence, always digging for supply. I know it's entry-level stuff. We know about supply, Mr. WTF, but no, this is for those moments. This video is for the moments when you are starting from scratch. It's the difference between us and them. They will fight to their dying breath that we're the mad ones. And you will never win that argument. Even if you look after their moral and financial and legal responsibilities for 7 straight years, and it's a matter of record, you will never win that argument. Never. But you can remember one thing to keep you sane. You've left them in peace, and they keep coming back for you.